This week, did you spend time with God by opening your Bible and reading the story and say, read me. You read me to read your story, your life story in these pages, to ask God to reveal things to you about yourself that you've never seen before. Our story today, it happens at the end of the first chapter of Mark, the very end, chapter 1 of Mark, starting in verse 40. Mark 1, verse 40. Now a leper came to him, imploring him, kneeling down to him and saying to him, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Then Jesus, moved with compassion, stretched out his hand and touched him and said to him, "I am willing, be clean." As soon as he had spoken, immediately the leprosy left him, and he was cleansed. And he strictly warned him and sent him away at once and said to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go your way. Show yourself to the priest and offer for your cleansing those things which Moses commanded as a testimony to them." However, he went out and began to proclaim it freely and to spread the matter, so that Jesus could no longer openly enter the city, but was outside in deserted places, and they came to him from every direction. I was there. I was there. I remember. I was there that day. I had woken up that morning because I heard the sounds of some of the other disciples walking around the house, in the house that we were staying in, and I woke up to the smell of bread being baked on the coals already. And then I saw Jesus. He came into the house, and he had the scent on him of field, and he had the moisture of dew on his clothes. He came in, he made the announcement that we should all get ready to go because we had to go to the next town because he needed to preach there too. So we got our things together, and we put them on our backs, and we were headed out the house. And I remember Peter saying how much he missed his mother-in-law's food. I missed it too. We hadn't even got to the outside of the village when already a small crowd had formed around us, but we were used to that by then because, Jesus, he can preach, he can really pack a synagogue, People that followed him, they loved to hear him tell stories, and so they would follow him. But some they followed him because they wanted to catch a miracle or something like that. Me, I followed him because I just wanted to be around him. I just wanted to be as close as I could to him. I want to be just like him someday. So we were walking down the road, and we weren't even like 10 minutes outside of out of the city when I heard this voice shouting. It was loud, but it was muffled, and it was shouting, "Unclean, unclean!" And the whole crowd, we just froze, and the hair stood up on my arms. It was a leper. Oh, I can't stand lepers. They freak me out. They're unclean, so you're not even supposed to be around them. But two, they can't feel anything, I've heard, and they walk around with these open sores, and it's like they're still alive, but they're already starting to decompose. They're undead. I don't like it. And he shouted out, "Unclean, unclean," and he was walking with a limp right for us. He was not deviating his trajectory, and he was walking right towards us down the middle of the road. And Peter, he stood out in front because he's the boldest of all of us, and he said, "Hey, get out of here." But he kept walking towards us, so I did the only thing I thought I could. I grabbed the nearest person, I said, "Run!" And we turned around and we ran. And we were running for a while, and I looked over my shoulder, and I saw that we were quite a ways away from the leper now, but now we were quite a ways from Jesus. And the leper was getting closer to Jesus, and we all just kind of stopped at once. Why wouldn't he run? And so I stopped, and they started talking. I could see, but I couldn't hear what they were saying, and I wondered what they were saying as I picked up the people I had tripped along the way. And I went closer, and I couldn't hear, but I saw Jesus reach out his hand. Jesus, my teacher, reached out his hand and touched that leper. I know that, we're supposed to do unto others as we would like people to do unto us, but Jesus couldn't have really meant everybody. Not everybody, but probably metaphorical or something. Not everyone. I don't think I could do something like that. Touch a leper. Yes, I follow Jesus. Yeah, I saw what he did, but not me. Not for people like that. Now a leper came to him, imploring him, kneeling down to him, and saying to him, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." And then Jesus, moved with compassion, stretched out his hand and touched him and said, "I am willing, be clean." And as soon as he had spoken, immediately the leprosy left him and he was cleansed. I was also there, but I was also in the crowd. I was in the crowd too, that had just gathered that day to follow Jesus. I was just there because I thought maybe I could catch a miracle, see him do something cool. And so I was walking with Jesus, but then this leper, he comes at us at the road, and as he yelled out, "Unclean, unclean," I backed away like everybody else, but someone tripped me, and so I was closer to him than I would have liked. And when I got back up, I heard him say "unclean" again, and then I realized that voice, I recognized it. I knew that man. I knew who he was, at least. He was a coworker of mine, a friend, really, a good friend. We worked together in the same field. We planted together before the rains came, and then we harvested after it was time to reap, and we worked together. We were good friends. If he was hungry, I'd give him some of my lunch. If he needed to borrow some money, I'd loan him some money. I'm a good guy, and But after a while, he started asking me for more money than I was really wanting to part with. But I'm a nice guy, so I gave him a little extra, and then after a while, he stopped paying me back, and he still owes me some money. After some time, he started leaving in the middle of work, and being a good friend, I asked him, "What you doing in the middle of the day when you leave, when we're all working still?" And he wouldn't give me a straight answer, and eventually one day he stopped coming. He just stopped coming altogether to work. He didn't show up. A few weeks later, I heard that his wife and children had to go back to live with her father's home, and that he had been diagnosed with leprosy and was sent away. Boy, he must have done something terrible in order for God to curse him like that. He must have been doing something just scandalous. The whole town, everybody in town, they have their own opinion as to what he might have been up to. But I have my own opinion, but I'm not going to tell you, But then I saw, so then there he was, in the flesh, or at least what was left of him, and he came up toward Jesus, and I heard him say, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." And I was like, "Yeah, right, buddy. Even if he could, he wouldn't make you clean, you secret sinning money stealer." I know that Jesus is a good man. He's a good man. I like what he preaches. I like the things that he says, but you got to draw the line somewhere, because the next thing I saw him do was Jesus reached out and he touched him. He touched that man covered in leprosy, and he said, "I will be clean." You got to draw the line somewhere, because when Jesus touched that man, he took his uncleanness on himself. He made himself unclean by interacting with him, that sinner. Jesus is a good man. He can do impossible things. But how could he be willing to make a man like that clean? I'll hear more about this kingdom of his later, after this guy pays me back the debt he owes me. Then Jesus moved with compassion, stretched out his hand and touched him and said, "I am willing, be cleansed." And as soon as he had spoken, immediately the leprosy left him and he was cleansed. I remember I was there that day too. I remember because I was also that leper. I remember more than the memory of my own stench. I remember my normal life, what it was like before. I remember the love of my wife. I remember the love of my children. And I remember when I couldn't feel the heat from that pot in my hands. And I remember the scorching of my skin. And more than that, I remember the look on my wife's face, that terror that was in her eyes when she and I both realized what was in me. I remember putting on those torn clothes and for the first time having to cry out, unclean, unclean, unclean. I just want to be clean. I just want to be clean. I don't want to be healed. I don't want to be better. I don't want to be cured. I want to be clean. Because that sin that was so deep in my soul finally burst out onto my skin for all the world to see. I want to be clean. And so I heard about a man named Jesus who preached and demons left. A man who could heal the brokenhearted, who set the captives free from the imprisonment that they put themselves in. I heard about this man, and I thought, if I can only see him, he can make me clean. And so I said, I've got to find him. And I remembered hearing that he preached that if you ask, there will be an answer, that if you seek, you will find. And so I sought him out because I was going to ask. But how was I going to get to him? I'm a leper. I can't go inside of the city. I can't go inside of the villages. I can't go inside of those places where he would be. So I have to meet him someplace in the in-between. And so I waited along the roadside, and from a town I had heard in what direction he was traveling, and I waited outside hoping that he would come this way. And then one day I saw him coming toward me. And I couldn't touch him. I couldn't get near him, but I called out for as far as my voice could carry, and I said, if you are willing, you can make me clean. And I knelt down in the road in front of him. And then I heard him come closer, and he stretched out his hand. He did it in such a way that everyone could see, no one could mistake it, and he moved with such certainty that it even scared me a little. He reached out and he touched me. He put that hand on my contagious skin. He touched me. It had been so long since I had felt the touch of somebody. It had been so long since I had felt that somebody cared about me. And if all that he did that day was just touch me, I would have been fine. I would have been fine. I would have rotted away in happiness because someone touched me, because someone looked at me, somebody saw me. They cared about whether I lived or died. They cared about my life. They paid attention to me. They gave me their attention for a minute, and that's all that I wanted. It satisfied the deepest longings of my soul. But then he said, I will be clean. And you know, to this day, I have no idea how it happened. He said, be clean, and I was clean. It happened so fast. He said it, and it happened. It was like those stories that I grew up hearing. He spoke, and it was so. He spoke, and my whole self came into being. He spoke, and the chaos in my skin, in my flesh, in my muscles. It ceased its self-destruction, and I was clean. I was whole. And those rags that held me together suddenly had nothing to stick to, and they fell off of me. I tore my mess from myself, and I threw it to the ground. I was free from my filth. I was free from my old self. I was new. I looked up and I saw the crowd with their mouths gaping, their eyes wide. And they were standing behind Jesus, who his smile was gaping, and his eyes were bright. But then his face changed, and he said to me, very sternly, he said, "Don't tell anyone about this. Go to the priests, go to the temple, and show them what you've done, and do exactly as Moses told you as a testimony to them." And so, of course, I said yes, and I went walking back. Well, I was leaping back to Jerusalem. But as I went, I couldn't help it. I just told everyone about what God had done for me, what Jesus had done for me. And as I ran back, I couldn't keep it inside. Is it wrong to tell about what Jesus has done for you? Is it a bad thing to share what God has done in your life, that he's changed you, that he's made you whole? It must have been just a metaphor. It must have been just something that he said. He's very modest. Jesus, he doesn't want to have any fame. He doesn't want to be anything that he doesn't want. He's not in it for the likes. He's in it because he wants to affect people. But I was going to tell people anyway. At least that's what I thought then. But if only I had kept my mouth shut. I ruined everything. He did everything for me, and now he can't even go inside the cities. He can't go inside. He has to preach out in the sticks. Yeah, I had faith, but I should have had obedience too. And I only pray that his kingdom will come, and that his will is done in me too. On that day, with the death of 2 birds, and in the blood of 1 lamb, and being buried under the waters, I was restored to life in the house of God. However, he went out and began to proclaim it freely and to spread the matter, so that Jesus could no longer openly enter the city, but was outside in deserted places, and they came to him from every direction. I wasn't there that day. I'm a priest. I was in the temple. But believe me, I heard the rumor. It got to me even before the leper did. And honestly, if that leper had come to me, if that guy had come to me without me hearing this rumor, I would have written him a clean bill of health. I would have said there was some mistake, sent him away. It would have been fine. But then I heard that this man, Jesus, was involved. I wasn't going to let this trickster get his way. So I was really skeptical. I heard that this man, Jesus, had been preaching in the synagogues. I heard that he had been teaching with authority. And now I heard that he had been reaching out to the unclean people. I heard that he was a lawbreaker. But then he did send the leper to us, I don't know. According to the law, this man had been pronounced unclean and it was disposed of. He was sent away. And when you don't have a solution to a problem, the only thing you can do is prescribe isolation. To remove the person is easier than actually dealing with the problem. To get them out of society, push them off into anywhere else. So that's what we've been doing. We've been doing that for, always. I personally knew a man who had contracted this disease. He didn't know where he got it from, as most people who have this don't know. He didn't even tell his family at first, for a few days even, because he was afraid of what that isolation would be like, to be away from the people that he loved. But that same fear later on, it compelled him to leave and to go into isolation because he was afraid of giving it to the people that he cared about so much. And so he left. In the Torah, it says very clearly what we as priests are to do. We're to look at the law and we're to look at the person, and if there is a blemish with a white hair sticking out, leprosy. If that blemish is deeper than the skin, leprosy. If that blemish is raw and opened and festering, leprosy. If that blemish is growing at all, leprosy. It's easy. That's what you look for. And sure, some people do make mistakes. I've heard about priests that have made mistakes on one little blemish, and after a few weeks, the person came back and they said, I guess I was wrong. But this man, we have it in the record. He was leprous. He had leprosy all over his body, and it continued to spread, and they cast him out of the city. He is a leper. But when this man came in, and he said who he was, I didn't believe it. He was clean. I've never seen anyone so clean. His skin was so clean, not a scar on him. Even his face was clean. His soul was clean. He came up to me and he said what had happened. And I had to admit that this was not a trick. Yes, I had heard the stories. Yes, I saw him right in front of me. Yes, I knew that he was clean. Yes, it was written in the books, this man is cleansed now from leprosy. But I could barely believe it. How can this man have cleansed this leper from leprosy? Nothing like that had happened in 800 years. And even then, it only happened once. For the history, all of Earth's history had gone by. You know how many lepers were out there that lived and decayed and died without being cured? Why him? Why this man? The words that I hear repeated in the streets of Jesus. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. Something's different now. Maybe the kingdom really is at hand. And he said to him, saying, if you are willing, you can make me clean. I was there that day. I was there that day following Jesus. I was there that day in the crowd. I was there that day unclean, filthy, and contagious. I was there that day with my stubbornness, my pride, and my bigotry. I was there that day. What about you? Were you there? Were you there that day too?
Let's stand and sing together. This song is called Broken Vessels.